Hello everyone. In today's video, we will be learning about single-digit multiplication using the multiplication chart. So first of all, let's get started by filling in this multiplication chart. So, as we get started, 1 times 1 is equal to 1, and 2 times 1 is equal to 2, and so on. So, as I filled in this top row, we can now determine that all the numbers just increase by 1 each time. And it is the same for the row down here. Using the multiplication chart, we now know that any number times 1 is equal to itself, like 2 times 1 is equal to 2, 3 times 1 is equal to 3, 9 times 1 is equal to 9, and so on. So now let's go to the 2's. So 2 times 1, as we know, is already equal to 2. Now let's move on to the rest of it. 2 times 2 is equal to 4, 2 times 3 is equal to 6, and so on. So, there's another pattern we can see using the 2's. Like I said, we already know about the 1's, but now, if we look at the row of the 2's, we realize that it is going up by 2 each time. Like 2 times 2 is equal to 4, 2 times 3 is equal to 6, 2 times 4 is equal to 8, and it keeps on increasing by 2 each time. The same goes for this row down here. Now that we have the 2's figured out, let's move on to the 3's. Now, we already know 3 times 1 is equal to 3, and 3 times 2 is equal to 6. Now we just need to fill in the rest of the row. 3 times 3 is equal to 9, 3 times 4 is equal to 12, and so on. So now let's try to figure out the pattern for the 3's. As we can see, if we multiply, it keeps increasing by 3 each time. Like 3 times 1 is equal to 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 5 is 15, and so on. The same goes for this bottom row as well. So now that we have the 3's figured out, let's move on to the 4. We can already tell that 4 times 1 is equal to 4, 4 times 2 is equal to 8, 4 times 3 is equal to 12. Now we just need to fill in the rest. 4 times 4 is equal to 16, 4 times 5 is equal to 20, and we can continue filling in the rest. If we look at the row of 4, we again realize that there is another pattern here. The pattern is that it increases by 4 each time, which makes sense, since the 3's increase by 3 each time, 2's increase by 2 each time, and 1's increase by 1 each time. So now, we just continue filling in this row down here as well. So 4 times 5 is equal to 20, and the rest of the row. Now that we have the 4's filled up, and we know how much they increase by, let's move on to the 5. We can already see that we have the table filled in up to 5 times 4. Now let's move on to 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is equal to 25, 5 times 6 is equal to 30, and so on. Again, we see a pattern in here. In this row, there is an increase of 5 each time. And it makes sense because this is the 5 row. And the same is for the bottom row. Now, let's move on to the 6. 6 times 6 is equal to 36. 6 times 7 is equal to 42. 6 times 8 equals 48. And now we are almost done the row of 6's. Now that we've completed the row of 6's, we can see that our pattern continues to be true. All of these numbers increase by 6 each time, which means if we keep increasing and multiplying, we could also figure out our answer by adding 6 to the previous answer. The same goes for all of the rest of the numbers. To figure out our next answer, we can simply add 1 each time, add 2 each time, add 3, add 4, add 5, and 6. Now let's fill in our 7 row. We've already filled it in up to 7 times 6, so now we only have a few boxes left. 7 times 7 is equal to 49, and we can continue filling in the rest. And again, we also have to fill in the bottom, as this row is also the 7 row. Now we are almost finished our table. We just have 8, 9, and 10 to go. Now, we've almost finished filling in the row of 8, but we can still tell that our pattern is true, since it increases by 8 each time. So now, let's continue and fill in the rest of our table. Now, as you can see, we are almost finished, just 4 boxes left. But these 4 boxes are still important because it finishes our 9 row and our 10 row. Our pattern still continues to be true for the 9s and for the 10s. So now, let's finish our 9 row. And we can finish off our table by saying 10 times 10 is equal to 100. Now we can figure out lots of similarities with our pattern. We can also tell easily that the 10 row increases by 10 each time. An easy way to remember that 10 times 5 is equal to 50 is just by adding a 0 onto the number. So now let's do some examples using the multiplication chart. Let's try to figure out what 7 times 3 is equal to. using the multiplication chart. How would we do that, you say? Well, we start at the 7 and move all the way down until we see the 3. The 3 and the 7 have to match up, and that will give us our answer. So 3 times 7, or 7 times 3, is equal to 21. So there we have found our answer, and it is equal to 21. Now let's try to figure out another question. So 9, let's see, 9 times 8. Now, using our multiplication table, we still have to go 9 until we see that the 8 lines up with the 9. So we go from 9 to the 8, and that is equal to 72. As you can tell, the 8 and the 9 match up perfectly. That gives us our answer. So now, as you can tell, now you know how to use the multiplication table effectively and how to figure out single-digit answers using it. Another way we can figure out single-digit multiplication is by using addition. For example, let's take this example one more time, and let's try using addition to solve it instead of the multiplication chart. So, another way to write 7 times 3 is 7 plus 7 plus 7, or 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, 3. Now, this and this and this all equal the same thing. They all equal 21 as their answer. So, that means whichever way we decide to solve it would be correct. For example, let's take one more, like 3 times 5. Now 3 times 5 is equal to 15, as we know, but we can also solve this using addition, like 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 is also equal to 15, and so is 5 plus 5 plus 5. So there you have it. There are two different ways to solve single-digit multiplication. One is by just adding right here, or multiplying and using the multiplication chart. Thank you for watching, and we hope you learned a lot throughout this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Learning math is fun.